our weekly cyber security article review in 30 minutes. And definitely, there are so many things that would have happened over the past week, and we always look forward to having these conversations where we can actually take that time to explore, to look at the various events, the various challenges that organizations are facing on a day-to-day basis as it relates to cybersecurity. And I mean, the main aim is
And
to for us to be able to acquire the necessary knowledge, skill set to look at what other persons, what other organizations are actually
definitely, there
experiencing
are so many things
within
that would
the
have happened.
cybersecurity space so that they can actually acquire the necessary skill set and also information that is required to fortify their environments. And thinking about looking at some of those, I mean, no doubt you would have possibly heard about the various happenings within cyberspace. Some of the things that actually took place over the past week leading up to today's conversation. If you, for many persons who follow the accurate news, then one of the highlights coming out of that is that the Mexico-based hacker targets global banks and Android malware. And also, we have coming out of HelpNet Security, 75% of consumers prepared to ditch brands hit by ransomware. And looking at others, I mean, we have where Chat GPT can leak sensitive data. How do companies protect customer data? That's also a big issue. Um, Looking at exploited solar power product vulnerability could expose energy organizations to attacks. That is coming out of the security week. And the list goes on. So there are a number of events, activities actually affecting the way companies, individuals, organizations operate. And these are things that management, the C suite, the various personnel within these organizations are now having to ensure that they are abreast with what is happening, looking at those best practices so that they can be in alignment with keeping the organization as resilient as best as possible. So, guys, as usual, we have Paul Robinson, we have Jonathan Fisher joining to provide their valuable, I mean, experience in terms of their insights on these various articles. Gentlemen, thanks for joining in this conversation.
Good morning.
Uh, Great. So, Jonathan, can you provide us with your insights? I mean, with all that is happening, I mean, what is that particular article that actually um, resonated or jumped out at you that attracted your attention? I mean, to date, as we are having this discussion.
Yeah, so the one that I really looked at and I really enjoyed was talking about how 75% of customers are prepared to ditch, brand names if they're being hit by ransomware. Um, and to me, we can talk about all the cybersecurity, tools, techniques, practices that we should be using. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to, how is your business functioning, right? If you're not going to take, if the organization is not going to take the time to really invest in their security programs to ensure that they're not being attacked, um, in the end of the day, they're losing customers, right? It says 75%. Now, I think that number even increases a little bit to 81% if it's done multiple times. So you're talking about, up to 75 to 80% of your customer base is willing to leave if they find out that your organization's having some type of ransomware attack. Because we all want to make sure our data is safe. I think we're starting to get a little bit smarter on understanding that we kind of lose control of our data or the ability to protect it when we give it to other people, organizations to have. Um, and it's a lot easier to keep customers than it is to generate new customers. So if you're having up to 80% of your customers who are willing to leave, how much more money is your organization going to have to spend in order to try to um, bring in that amount, if not more customers to do it? So that's one of the big things that I really liked about it. One of the other things I found very interesting is kind of the attitude that maybe the younger generations have. Further in the article, it talks about 37% of Gen Z individuals prefer to have an apology by the customer who had a ransomware over anything else. It says it ranks 12% higher than even a monetary compensation or something. So they just want to have the company to acknowledge and apologize. Um, where it says, baby boomers, that they're about 74 or 74% of them are less forgiving uh, and consider, a ransomware attack as the irreparable damage that's being suffered by them. Um, Maybe it shows my age. I'm not quite in that baby boomer yet, but I am towards that area where uh, I'm not going to trust a company with my data if I know that they have a constant attacks, right? I like to pay attention. I like to know what's going on with the companies I kind of work with personally, and in my professional aspect as well. And I don't, I'm not going to be caring about if they give me an apology, because apology to me, is just right on the top of the water, right? I want to know what you're doing to take care of it, to fix it. Uh, are you going to be able to? Is that company going to be able to, guarantee or provide, some type of um, personal security software for me to be able to check my credit scores and stuff like that, right? So I think it's interesting to show that maybe these younger generations that have kind of grown up with the internet, with the data, that maybe they're not fully understanding the impact that it has on probably their future and everything else that they have. If their data is getting exploited and taken because of a company that's not able to protect it.
Yeah, those are a number of important points and areas that we could actually go into in terms of actually exploring this in further details. But I just want to just hang on to those points just a little bit. Paul, do you have any points that you want to share on, or do you want to provide us with your insight or take on any article that might have resonated with you? I mean, over the past few days.
Yeah, and it kind of ties into the article that I reviewed. A couple of things that Jonathan said very eloquently. One is, you know, it really comes down to the company and the company culture of how you're recovering from a ransomware attack. Again, I feel cybersecurity attacks, and if it's legally determined to be a breach, it's an endemic at this point. It's not an epidemic or pandemic. It's an endemic. It's like the war on drugs, or trying to stop human trafficking or things like that. It's just always, cyber attacks are always going to be with us. So what is your response and resiliency plan as an organization to work through? And another thing Jonathan mentioned, and then I'll go into my article, which I think somewhat ties into it, is I think at any age group we're just looking for an organization to be accountable for the actions, especially if it was deemed that they were negligent with security controls or the data that they have with us, or with the company. So some people say, oh well, that's weak, all you want is an apology and you'll feel better, millennial, Gen Z. And you know what? That's just how they grew up. Like you said, Jonathan, it's a different way of how they grew up than we did, where we want to see action. We want to see heads rolling. We want to see free credit monitoring for the rest of our lives. We want to see monetary things. And even though it's kind of different, it all boils down to accountability. And I think it's something that we as consumers absolutely have the right to demand from companies that we're doing business with. We're providing them sensitive data or sensitive information, as the accountability piece of it, that you have there. So the article that I chose was centered around talking about ChatGPT and leaking sensitive information. So I'm going to take a different spin on this article because there actually are a couple things I don't necessarily align with what they said, but that's fine. I think the only way that we learn is if we get various different opinions from different things. So just because I might not align with something doesn't mean I just trash it. You know, it's always good to grow, and definitely some good points in the article, but a couple of things that I didn't align with. So the first thing is, you know, Chat GPT has kind of become the Kleenex or the Jello of AI. You know, it's like pass me a Kleenex, you know, but that's really tissue, you know, or Jello, you know, I want some Jello for dessert. No, it's gelatin. But we take a brand name and we kind of make it into what the product is. And, you know, if you do your investigation, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of artificial intelligence protocols that are out there. So I really want organizations to understand, hey, don't just chase after Chat GPT, because there are AI protocols for Excel, AI protocols for marketing, AI protocols for sales, software development. So expand it into an AI strategy that you have for the organization that you have. The one thing in the article that I kind of differed on was that it is possible to control AI, and I don't think you can either. Kind of going with that endemic piece of it. You know, I think you can take necessary controls, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And I think you can have a strategy around protecting your organization from AI, but it's like the internet. You just can't control it. You know, when the internet came out, it was the same thing. How do we control the internet? And when people realize that you don't, and you just do what you can inside of it, it's good. And I feel it's the same thing with AI, because there's nothing stopping me from taking the knowledge that I have in my head of my company, jumping on my phone here and putting in the information into a protocol to make my life easier. Like, you can't firewall the brain. So you know, that's the one piece that I want to present to organizations, is to kind of get comfortable with that. You know, there's AI is always going to be a risk that's out there, and there's nothing you can do about it. I do want to talk positively about AI. It is an amazing protocol. I've used it. I know many people have used it in their lives for various things, and it speeds up the work that we do. It cuts down on time that we have for work that we're doing. So, you know, I want to talk positively about it, but also talk about how we can control it. And really, the main thing that I would suggest is education of your employees of the risks of all AI protocols, and having them to be your first line of defense with AI, getting them to understand, hey, if you put PII sensitive data, code, you know, coding is becoming big. If you put that out there, here's the actual risk that it causes to our organization, and really get them to understand, you know, how important it is to use it securely. It's just, again, same thing as the internet. You know, when the internet came out, you know, letting people know, hey, if you go on this website, it could have malicious things attached to it, or if someone's asking for your password through a phishing email, this is what can happen, and really being in touch with that. I also think it takes a combination of HR and the security team to come up with policies and procedures around the usage of AI. I know Microsoft and I think a couple of other large protocols are starting to build containerized ways of accessing AI, which is great. You can circumvent it too. So putting policies and procedures in place. I would even go as far as to say corrective action plans if someone is not using the protocol correctly. I know that that's a little over the top, but again, going back to what Jonathan talked about, the accountability that we have in working for organizations and engaging in activities uh, risk, something that
Yeah, we kind of lost you there, Paul, on those few last words. However, I think those are very, I mean, valid points you have actually highlighted from that article. I think the most important thing is that it's all about enablement and managing the various risks that exist with just about any technology. instead of what I would say back in the day, I mean, the mindset and the mentality of many security personnel was to prevent, to stop, to hinder persons from actually executing tasks. And this in of itself created resistance. And that is where you have things like shadow IT, all of these things. When you prevent, persons will always find some
Yep.
creative way. So the new approach as it relates to cybersecurity is enablement. Look at the risk, what could happen if this is done, the if else situations, and then actually putting the necessary scaffolding or controls or parameters in place to say, this is how you do X safely. If you do not abide by XYZ, then this is the result of your action. So it's all about putting that perimeter in place to um, mitigate against all the negative aspect of what it is that we are doing within the cybersecurity space. So those are very important points coming out of that article. And there are a number of other elements, but just to get back to Jonathan's article, I think that's also a very um, important article looking at, I mean, reasons behind purses in terms of that 75%, I mean, consumers deciding to move to their competitor in the case of a ransomware. Now, in light of all of this, Jonathan, can you shed some light in terms of what security control measures or strategies, based on the article, is being recommended that these businesses can actually implement to mitigate or deal with these various situations?
Yeah, I mean, within that article, it really it comes down to the customer trying to, take, I would say, a little bit of responsibility in ensuring that they are demanding things, kind of like how Paul was saying that, it's our right to demand it, right? So we have the right to understand how data is being used. Often when we go on there and they bring up, a website and you get the little cookie thing, a lot of times people probably just hit the accept the cookies, right? They don't actually open it up to see, surprisingly, you can open up those preferences. There'll be some that you have to accept. But then there's a lot that you can opt out of. If you just hit the click the button of accept all, you allow that company to have all that access that is within those permissions that they have. So understanding that, you don't have to blindly click it to be able to access it. You can open up those preferences, review how they're going to use that data, and then be able to decide if you want to opt in or opt out of that, and still be able to have access to that. That's something that I often do a lot, is just, open it up. I want to see how they're using it, just to make sure that I can understand how my data is going to be used by them. Um, and the biggest thing is, to demand accountability from these organizations who are working on it. And to me, that was the biggest thing that I found from that. If I take a little moment and go over to Paul's article talking about the chat GPT, I agree with a lot of what he said on that. In fact, my organization, it's a research lab, and we're going through the same problem that um, the lab leadership wants to use it. We find out that there's actually a lot of shadow IT using it right now, and we're trying to create those policies to do it. And we have to get it approved by our government agency, who right now is kind of a little skittish about using it, or those who are going to approve it are a little skittish because they're not sure that we have the right training, the right policies in place. So they're asking for some additional stuff. So that's one thing that we're having to do, is work through, understanding that to provide it. There's a few things in that article I don't fully agree with, kind of with Paul. The biggest thing is they say first is to deploy, good tech endpoints to detect. But that's also because they're talking a lot about using extensions. I understand that using extensions, but what's the number one way that we can stop using extensions is, as you were telling Richa, have policies in place, say these are the ways that we can appropriately use these new tools, right? If we deny them the ability to use certain extensions, allow them to still go to the website, use the website. Yeah, we're going to probably have to do a few more clicks, but it's at least making it safer to use it by going to the actual website, to actually put it in, like in GPT, or as Paul said, there are hundreds of different AI tools that are out there, to be able to use. So not just focusing on one company, one tool. I mean, because even that company, OpenAI, has a few different type of AI tools as well. But just being able to go in there, find out how to use it, how to get onto it, and then create good policies around not just ChatGPT, but AI in general, how you're going to kind of limit those extensions, because you never know what's really in that extension. And to be able to focus on that. So to me, it is focusing on the policies and the use of the people who are going to use it, to not limit them, but guide them in the appropriate ways to use it.
Yeah, very important points. Paul, you had something that you wanted to have mentioned before.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, the safely enabling, Riche, that you brought up. That's the key. Again, when the internet came out, for public consumption and for commercial consumption, it's like, well, we got to lock it down. We got to lock it down. We got to lock it down. Show me an organization that is making money not using the many making money off complete. It's powerful tool to not leverage in some way. It's just about safely enabling. And, we as security professionals, rightfully so, sometimes get pegged as, oh, well, you're extremists and you want us to do anything with productivity and profitability because you want to lock everything down. There are some companies and some people that go to that extreme, but really coming in the middle and saying, yes, great tool, could save our organization money, could make us more productive and profitable, but there has to be a safe way of using it. It's like a construction firm that gets a $125,000 Caterpillar excavator. Yeah, that's great for the company because it enhances your business and makes you profitable. But if you don't have people trained and understand the risk of the power of the tool, people are going to die. Like it's really that simple, and so I think having that same mentality with these protocols, because guess what, AI is not going to be the last thing that comes out that is going to be powerful and needs to be secured. So building those policies and procedures, then when the next AI or ChatGPT comes out, you have a standard in place for the organization that of what you need to adhere to, and it's really simplifying it too. It's making it very, very simple, which I feel you could do.
Yeah, totally in agreement. There is also something coming out of the article presented by Jonathan as it relates to customers request data protection. And this is very important. It says that customers, which brings to the point that, excuse me, that there are persons in terms of customers and users of these various products and services that are becoming very security conscious, if you want to look at it from that perspective. I mean, based on the research that is, they're saying that consumers are requesting increased data protection from vendors, with 55% favoring companies with comprehensive data protection measures such as reliable backup and recovery, password protection, and identity and access management strategies. And the question that comes to me is, um, based on these requests, it seems to me that persons are now understanding the technical aspect of cybersecurity requirements based on the surveys. Well, I guess it all depends on the persons who they would have actually conducted these um, research with in terms of getting this sort of feedback to say that we are requesting these technical levels of control. So I guess that's also another area to look at. But it's very important to see that we are actually seeing various strategies and various control measures that can actually be used within organizations. And surprisingly, it's it's not so much at times the complexity of things, but being able to simplify all the processes that are actually happening within an organization that actually makes things a bit more secure in terms of how an organization operates on a day-to-day basis. And one of the things that, as it relates to the article that actually resonated with me over the week, is one that, just to quickly to highlight a few points, is an article coming out of the Hacker News. Mexico-based hacker targets global banks with Android malware. And just a very important point coming out of this article is that they are saying the initial entry point for the multi-stage attack is SMS phishing, in which the threat actor employs various scare tactics. So going back to um, those social engineering techniques, I mean, SMS phishing, I mean, using, they're saying they also use the phishing pages where using a number of websites, clone websites that actually look quite genuine to actually trick various employees and senior executives in actually providing their credentials so that they could actually, I mean, attack these various organizations. So when we actually look at all these incidents that are actually taking place, there are so many similarities, which goes back to the point that if we work together as a community to look at all the various approaches, strategies, I mean, techniques, systems that we can use, then it's a matter of looking at what best fits each organization to see how well we can actually fight against all of these things that are taking place within cyberspace. And the fact is that these things will always be happening, but it's a matter of being prepared. The approach that you take as a company, as a business, as an organization, that actually makes the difference in all of this. Jonathan or Paul, I mean, do you have any, I mean, final words on the articles that have actually been discussed so far?
No, I mean, I think just to add on to that last one, yeah, the you know, I think people are starting to get smart to know how to start looking at phishing attacks, through emails and stuff. I think there's still work to be done, but I think it's been out there enough, and people have talked about it. If they've gone through any type of security awareness training to understand what to look for, the SMS phishing or smishing, as like they like to call it, also that's not as always easy to tell, because you just get a text. A lot of people tend to just kind of click on the link, maybe. um, it was very hard at times too, because if you have signed up for updates or newsletters from companies, they come across with a different type of um, phone number that that where it's coming from. And so sometimes you're not sure, hey, is this an actual legit from the from the bank, from the department store, or from the fast food place to get their deals for the day, or is this an attack, right? It's a lot harder to see on that. So I think the big thing is, to look at, hey, do you have a history of that, from that phone number, where it would show, maybe where you signed up, and it allows you to opt out. To me, that's the kind of the ways I kind of look at it. Also, I feel if I didn't request it, I'm not going to open it. And it's just kind of that simple understanding of, and trying to get that out, that, you can get attacked, and you can have your phone become a target as well, and not just it's not just your computer.
Paul?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had out of all the companies that I do business with, T-Mobile sent me a SMS text about changing a payment option on my account. I'm like, there's no way I'm just going to delete this and block it. Now I went on my account, and sure enough, it was legit. But I think companies have to get more creative with their marketing, because yes, again, it's a great way to blast out text for the deal of the day, or a billing inquiry or something like that. But everything is kind of just falling into that phishing bucket at this point. So maybe maybe it could be something as simple as like what I did. Hey, we have a change to your billing program. Log into your account safely and see the changes. Or we have the deal of the day. Verify your information and whatever. I mean, there's so many different ways. But you're right, Jonathan. As people get smarter, marketing companies that do marketing are going to have to get more creative in how they get people to click on things and to get their goods and services out there.
Awesome. Very important notes to end on, guys. And as usual, it's always a pleasure. I mean, when we can actually meet to have these various conversations. So there you have it. I mean, our weekly cybersecurity and GRC article review. So meet you same time, same place next week. Have a wonderful rest of week, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah. Have a good day.